Welcome back to The Explainer, everyone. We are jumping straight into part 10 of our 12-part masterclass today. And let me tell you, we are tackling something incredibly complex, but honestly, absolutely fascinating. We're zeroing in on that exact magical moment where an abstract, on-chain digital state reaches out and literally triggers a physical action right here in the real world. We're going to trace this mind-bending path from a digital root anchored securely on the blockchain all the way out to a physical leaf node sitting right on a desk. So, here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the digital-physical divide. Then, apostasy, banning the tree. 3, ERC7827 and LIFO states. 4, the Cosmo versus the local. 5, digital realization, the cheerbot. And finally, 6, leaf node logistics. Let's just dive right in. Okay, section 1, the digital-physical divide. So how exactly does an abstract line of code physically move a motor in the real world without the whole sequence just totally crashing? To answer that, we really have to understand the severe limitations developers run into when trying to map digital ledgers to physical machines. Historically, it's been pretty chaotic. Usually, developers rely on traditional event-driven programming. But, when distributed ledgers try to talk to physical machines, it's kind of like setting up this massive, overly complex game of dominoes. A single delayed signal, an event firing twice, or some hardware state falling out of sync with a digital ledger, and bam, the entire sequence is ruined. The dominoes just fall apart. We absolutely needed a flawless bridge to cross this divide. Which brings us to section 2, apostasy, or banning the tree. Now, to actually build that flawless bridge, the underlying architecture had to undergo a massive recalibration, and the source documents drop a rather intense directive here. They explicitly banish the classic floating upside-down tree metaphor, which, let's face it, is the exact way developers have visualized data structures for decades. They straight up label it as apostasy. I know it sounds incredibly dramatic for software documentation, right? But they literally classify this old, unanchored data metaphor as a heresy that just has to be purged to achieve true physical automation. Why? Because you simply cannot just float off in the digital ether if you want to perfectly control physical reality. The crucial point here is this stark contrast. On one side, we've got the old upside-down tree. It's floating, it's top-heavy, and it relies on these bloated command chains where every tiny action has to be routed up and down entirely unpredictably. But on the other side, we have the new root-to-leaf architecture, and this demands a strict, grounded focus. It requires sovereign stewardship, securely anchored at the root, with concrete, deterministic execution happening way out at the edge. It's really a mathematically pure replacement that grounds data firmly in reality. All right, section 3. ERC7827 and LIFO states. Enter ERC7027. The real breakthrough here is that this protocol introduces what the docs call value version control. Basically, it takes standard lightweight JSON, stuff we usually just use to zip text across the web, and turns it into a rigorous mathematical smart contract layer. It enables bit-perfect tracking of state transitions, all while keeping everything totally human-readable. And what's really brilliant is the pragmatism of it all. It is 100% backwards compatible with the ERC 721 and 1155 NFT standards we're already using, so developers don't even have to learn a new language. It makes complex Ethereum calls as easy as just querying a standard website. And the engine powering this whole protocol? That's the LIFO JSON state tree. Last in, first out. The architecture strictly pivots away from those old first in, first out structures. Because the very last item to go in is the first item to come out, you unlock this incredibly efficient single-entry bookkeeping. You only ever need to query index 0 to get an immediate mathematical proof of state. You completely bypass the need to painstakingly scan through massive, expensive transaction histories. It literally acts like a perfect tamper-proof digital seal. Moving on to section 4, the Cosmo versus the local. Our sources use this fascinating framework called Cosmolo to describe this divide. The Cosmo is the abstract global internet. This is the digital ether, where our LIFO roots securely anchor and where those high-level JSON states and complex RPC calls are just floating around. The local, on the exact opposite side, represents our physical, localized edge network. It's the tangible real world. So our roots are anchored securely up in the Cosmo, but our execution leaves. They live entirely down in the local. Section 5, Digital Realization, the cheerbot. Okay, I want you to meet the Flow X402 CheerBot. Now, make no mistake, while it might look like a bright, friendly 3D printed desktop toy, it is actually a functioning robotic vending machine acting as a physical switchboard. Tucked inside is a localized microhost, specifically a Raspberry Pi. Instead of relying on incredibly complex Ricardian contracts, the ones that try to bake dense, heavy legal parameters directly into code, the CheerBot just bypasses a 30-year technical wall entirely. It utilizes the physical GPIO pins, those little metal prongs that serve as the hardware's nervous system, to literally translate code directly into reality. Let's trace this exciting chain reaction to see exactly how an abstract network tip dispenses physical cheer. Step 1, the server returns a 402 status code and just waits. Step 2, the client's wallet steps in and signs a cryptographic proof of payment. Boom! Step 3, that verified state hits our LIFO tree precisely at index 0. And finally, the magic moment. The CheerBot reads that bit-perfect JSON state and directly triggers electrical signals to the physical GPIO pins on the Raspberry Pi. Pure mathematical logic is seamlessly translated into a literal electrical pulse to spin a motor or light up a room. It's wild. And that brings us to our final section, Section 6, Leaf Node Logistics. There's this quote from the architectural documentation that beautifully captures what's known as the semiotic bridge. It says, "The human pilot applies the intent, but the agentic cell executes the sweat," bridging that massive gap between messy human desire and strict deterministic machine execution. You see, human cognition, what the sources call OS alpha, is messy, it's probabilistic, it's associative, and it's highly creative. But silicon is cold, rigid, and strictly mechanical. To cross this massive divide, the human pilot applies the creative intent, while a deterministic AI agent cell, like Polycretus, executes the actual computational sweat. We are quite literally tricking rocks into thinking with lightning, to perfectly automate our imagination, ensuring absolutely zero mistranslations out at the leaf node. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. We've just traced this incredible journey from an abstract blockchain state through a LIFO-grounded root-to-leaf architecture, all the way to a physical robot dispensing cheer right there on your desk. We are clearly entering a totally new paradigm where bit-perfect, absolute digital truth orchestrates physical reality. The semiotic bridge is officially built. So the only question left is, what are you going to program these bit-perfect promises to actually do in your own living room? Thanks so much for joining me for this Masterclass explainer, and as always, keep learning.